Hello, everyone. You guys ready for some some pain? Here we go again. Misery loves company for sure. I feel like I can only do one of these a week. I was thinking about doing a. I'm not gonna do this, but I was thinking about just trying to read this as much as I could do in a day, and just keep going and going and going. Just to get this over with. You pre-read the chapter. It's good. Excellent. What's up, guys? How are you? Is anybody here's a quick question before we start. Is anybody actually liking this book? That's different from liking the characters in the book. Anybody liking this? Nice. I like that you're liking it. Okay, good. If it's a dig at RNJ. Romeo and Juliet. This is Dance of the Nights by Sergei Prokofiev from a ballet on Romeo and Juliet. I should have checked if this music was copyright. Might get flagged for that later. It just felt appropriate. You're almost done with the audiobook. Nice. Yeah, Meg, I'm kind of the same. I feel like a lot of these books are going to be fun to read together. It's like an interesting book. I don't think it's poorly written at all. It's like a fun, I understand why it's a classic. Oh, not fun. I understand why it's a classic. It's a fun read to read with you guys. And we can kind of be in pain together. But it's not a book that I enjoy. Like, enjoyment is the wrong word for it for me. Like, I appreciate it. Is that the right word? I recognize that it's well written. Yeah, John, I'm kind of the same. Like, I don't hate it. Well, I like hate the characters in this, but I don't hate I guess just the writing of it. But I'm not enjoying it. It's not like a Pride and Prejudice where I'm just like there's just so many great things that are happening. It's like there's nothing great happening. Apparently the movie stops at the first book. I don't know. I feel like that's not right. I thought I heard that. Someone said that the other day. Someone also asked me a question about this book because they were talking about the movie and they were talking to me in real life about the book. And they were like, does this thing happen in the book? Because they thought I had read the whole thing. And I was like, oh, I don't think so. At least not yet. Okay. Prokofiev is in the public domain. Excellent. Good. It was a little spoiler about, I actually don't know if it's a spoiler or not, but in the movie, apparently he puts a dog leash around his wife and like treats her like a dog or something. I feel like that could definitely be in the book. Like book 2 is going to be about that. And that wouldn't be the worst thing that he's done by a long shot. Most of the movies, the first half of the book. Interesting. Most of the movie ends after the first half. That's shocking. That's crazy to me. I don't think this is going to get any better, to be completely honest. But I'm curious if at the end there's going to be anything that's like... I'm curious at the end if there's going to be anything that's like... I can't say redeemable. I don't think anything this is like redeemable. Redeemable is not the right word. Like, if there's anything going to be... that's going to be... enjoyable. Where I'm going to go, oh, okay, at least... maybe, is there going to be any closure? Maybe that's what I'm looking for. Not really, but maybe. Kathy, yeah, you didn't miss much. We're just chilling, chatting. Yeah, Atlanta, me and you and the rest of us together. It's not like I think all of us can kind of appreciate like maybe the reason why this is a classic, but this is one of those books to me where you read once and then you're done. Like I don't know, I mean I don't know many people who are just salivating to read this book, and they just can't wait to get back into it. But it's a phenomenal depiction of mental health issues and dysfunctional families. And I'm sure a lot of people who have really dysfunctional families read this and they're like, oh, it just resonates with them in some way, which is a little sad. But I think books that help us understand our own perspectives and our own life are worth reading. So I like it for that reason. English majors and emo teens. For sure. If I could go back, I would be a history major. Also, everyone liked the stream. 26 people, only 4 likes. Come on, guys. Everyone liked the stream. Also, anybody into sports? Man, there were some good Olympic stuff that was happening. Oh, the Olympics were just so fun. Sorry to my Canadians, but man, that was a great game. Canada dominated the U.S. for the entire game, and we just snuck out with a win. Whew. Crazy. Yes, it's been so good. Curling was so good. Oh, okay, thanks for the $10. Generational trauma and feuds is one thing. I'm a daytime soap fan, for God's sake. I need to like at least a few characters in the game. HW Wuthering Heights doesn't do it for me. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, there's dysfunctional families, but like put one likable character in that we can kind of root for. There's just no one that we can root for in this book, which just makes it a hard read. Yeah, curling was really great this year, by the way. That's all right. You can catch up on the read. This is one of those where I am still going to just talk about my reading experience as I'm reading this. But I think you guys have noticed this too. When I'm trying to do these reads, I get to a point where I struggle to keep reading this because I'm like, I need this to end. So I make less comments and just read. So we're going to do 3 chapters tonight. And the third chapter is a longer one. And I might just read that one fast. Just to get this over with, guys. I'm obviously going to give my commentary throughout it because that's what makes this channel. But we're going to see. We're going to see how it goes. So without further ado, let's dive into this. Mainly so we can get it over with. I think a good book should evoke emotion. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It can be good or bad. Don't care. Just don't want to be apathetic toward a book. That's the worst crime. Yeah, honestly, that's a valid point. Yeah, I like that. I like that idea. Even if you're angry at the book, it's still elicited a good emotion in you. But there's a point too where sometimes writers, they are provocative, and I don't like overly provocative books. Like authors that are just trying to give you emotion. It can go far in the other extreme too. Every word read is a word closer to finishing. It's like Samwise. If I read one more word, it'll be closer to the end than I've ever read, and we'll almost be done. Sarah, you can fall asleep for sure. If it's like, what time is it in South Africa? It's gotta be like 2 a.m. right now. Impressive that you're even here. All right, guys, let's get through this. We can do this together. This is the only one I got through due to audiobook. Interesting. Okay, 140, man. Okay, let's get to reading so I can put you to sleep with abusive people. That sounded terrible. All right, this is really chapter 1. I don't want to call it Wuthering Heights. I should just call it Wuthering Heights book, because I didn't know there are 2 books. Book 2, chapter 1. It's not really chapter 15, but for lack of better titling, we're just going to call this chapter 15. All right, chapter 1, aka chapter 15. Another week over, and I am so many days near health and spring. Oh, I feel that sentence. We just had a snowstorm on the East Coast, New York City area that just kind of wiped us out. It was a brutal snow. There's like 2 feet of snow out there right now. I'm so sick of snow. I just need spring. Audrey, what's up, Audrey? With a little bit delayed conversation, but you'll catch up. I have now heard all my neighbors' history at different sittings. As the housekeeper could spare time for more important occupations, I'll continue it in her own words, only a little condensed. She is, on the whole, a very fair narrator, and I don't think I could improve her style. Oh, interesting. So he's already been told the whole story, so he's going to retell it now. Okay. Interesting. I trust him a little less than I trust Nellie, but okay. In the evening, she said, the evening of my visit to Wuthering to the Heights, I knew as well as if I saw him that Mr. Heathcliff was about the place. And I shunned going out, because I still carried his letter in my pocket, and I didn't want to be threatened or teased anymore. I had made up my mind not to give it till my master went somewhere, as I could not guess how its recipient, or how its receipt, would affect Catherine. The consequence was that I did not reach her before the lapse of 3 days. The 4th was Sunday, and I brought it into her room after the family were gone to church. Sorry, I'm getting text from my brothers right now. The 4th was Sunday, and I brought her into her room after the family were gone to church. There was a manservant left to keep the house with me, and we generally made a practice of locking the doors during the hours of service. But on that occasion, the weather was so warm and pleasant that I set them wide open. And to fulfill my engagement, as I knew who would be coming, I told my companion that the mistress wished very much for some oranges, and he must run over to the village and get a few, to be paid on the morrow. He departed, and I went upstairs. Mrs. Linton sat in a loose white dress, with a light shawl over her shoulders in the recess of the open windows, as usual. Her thick, long hair had been partly removed at the beginning of her illness. She went bald? Interesting. Her illness being her insanity? Oh, they cut her hair? They used to cut hair for a fever? What kind of medicine? Weird. And now she wore it simply combed in its natural tresses over her temples and necks. Her appearance was altered, as I had told Heathcliff. But when she was calm, there seemed unearthly beauty in the change. Yeah, they also bled people. Weird. 3 men in a boat? I've never even heard of that. The flash of her eyes had been succeeded by a dreamy, melancholy softness. They no longer gave the impression of looking at the objects around her. They appeared to gaze beyond and far beyond. You would have said out of this world. Then the paleness of her face, its haggard aspect having vanished as she recovered flesh, and the peculiar expression arising from her mental state, though painfully suggestive of their cause, added to the touching interest which she wakened. And invariably to me, I know, and to any person who saw her, I should think, refuted more tangible proofs of convalescence and stamped her as one doomed to decay. A book lay spread on the sill before her, and the scarcely perceptible wind fluttered its leaves at intervals. I believe Linton had laid it there, for she never endeavored to divert herself with reading or occupation of any kind, and he would spend many an hour in trying to entice her attention to some subject which had formerly been her amusement. Sweet. I kind of like that. Like, he is doing what he can do. Like, that is almost all he can do. Just like putting suggestions by her. Putting a little book there, being like, you used to like this book, maybe she'll pick it up and she'll like it again. Like he really does have like a savior complex. I don't love it because he's not gonna really save anybody in this because I think they're all gonna die. I don't really think that, but um, like he needs to not try to. I don't know what he needs to do, to be honest. I'd be so lost if I was in his position. Yeah, maybe he read to her. That'd be really sweet. I like that. Like I think all you can do in this situation is manage what Kathy has, which I feel like they're doing. She was conscious of his aim, and in her better moods endured his efforts placidly, only showing their uselessness by now and then suppressing a wearied sigh, and checking him at last, with the saddest of smiles and kisses. At other times, she would turn petulantly away, and hide her face in her hands, or even push him off angrily, and then he took care to let her alone, for he was certain of doing no good. For he was certain of doing no good. Oh, yeah, okay. Now, that's interesting. After... Hey, what's up, Aman? Aman? Welcome to your first live read. It's interesting for this. Like, you can't do this in society back then, but in our society today, if you were the person who wants to be with another person so bad, if I'm Edgar, I don't want to be with a person who doesn't want to be with me. I would just say, Catherine, I wish you the best. We're getting a divorce and you can go chase after him. He probably knows that she would be miserable and she might die, but for maybe a little bit, she would have happiness. I don't know what you do if you're in an Edgar situation. Do you literally just like pull off a certificate of divorce and just say, go ahead and chase, what's your name? Chase Heathcliff. For sure. Yeah, it's a great point too. She has abandonment issues that might crop up even worse if she got ditched or if she got a certificate of divorce. Yeah, Kathy does want both. That's like the tough thing about this. She's a character who knows what she wants but doesn't know what she wants at the same time. Just so confusing. Gimmerton chapel bells were still ringing, and the full mellow flow of the beck in the valley came soothingly on the ear. It was a sweet substitute for the yet absent murmur of the summer foliage, which drowned that music about the grange when the trees were in the leaf. At Wuthering Heights it always sounded on quiet days, following a great thaw, or a season of steady rain. And of Wuthering Heights, Catherine was thinking as she listened, that is, if she thought or listened at all, but she had a vague, distant look mentioned before, which expressed no recognition of material things either by ear or eye. She's just blankly staring at things. She just is like in a daze. There's a letter for you, Mrs. Linton, I said, gently inserting it in one hand that rested on her knee. You must read it immediately, because it wants an answer. Shall I break the seal? Yes, she answered, without altering the direction of her eyes. I opened it. It was very short. Now, I continued, read it. She drew away her hand and let it fall. I replaced it in her lap, and stood waiting till it should please her to glance down. But that movement was so long delayed that I at last resumed. Must I read it, ma'am? It is from Heathcliff. There was a start, and a troubled gleam of recollection, and struggled to arrange her ideas. She lifted the letter, and seemed to peruse it, and when she came to the signature, she sighed. Yet still I found she had not gathered its import, for upon my desiring to hear her reply, she merely pointed to the name and gazed at me with mournful and questioning eagerness. Well, he wishes to see you, said I, guessing her need of an interpreter. He's in the garden by this time, and impatient to know what answer I shall bring. As I spoke, I observed a large dog lying by the sunny grass beneath, raise its ears as if about to bark, and then smoothing them back, announced by a wag of the tail that someone approached whom it did not consider a stranger. Mrs. Linton bent forward and listened breathlessly. The minute after a step traversed the hall, the open house was too tempting for Heathcliff to resist walking in. Most likely he supposed that I was inclined to shirk my promise, and so resolved to trust his own audacity. With straining eagerness, Catherine gazed toward the entrance of her chamber. He did not hit the right room directly. She motioned me to admit him, but he found it out ere I could reach the door, and in a stride or two was at her side, and had her grasped in his arms. He neither spoke nor loosed his hold for some 5 minutes, during which period he bestowed more kisses than he ever gave in his life before, I dare say. But then my mistress had kissed him first. And I plainly saw that he could hardly bear for downright agony to look into her face. Imagine if this were in Pride and Prejudice, we'd all be swooning right now. We'd all be like, this would be like, it also, like, I've never really felt that bad for them until before, like, after the fact that they were kids, I haven't felt bad for them. But this is maybe the first section that I actually feel bad for Catherine. Like, she's like gotten the Dementor's kiss. She's like soulless now. I mean, in the next chapter, this is probably going to change. Yeah, it probably wouldn't belong in Pride and Prejudice. I take that back a little bit. I think there's some parts of it where it kind of does, but it would be differently written, maybe. The same conviction had stricken him as me, from the instant he beheld her, that there was no prospect of ultimate recovery there. She was fated, sure to die. Man. "Oh, Kathy, oh, my life, how can I bear it?" was the first sentence he uttered in a tone that did not seek to disguise his despair. And now he stared at her so earnestly that I thought the very intensity of his gaze would bring tears into his eyes. But they burned with anguish. They did not melt. "What now?" said Catherine, leaning back and returning his look with a suddenly clouded brow. Her humor was a mere vein for constantly varying caprices. "You and Edgar have broken my heart, Heathcliff. And you both come to bewail the deed to me, as if you were the only people to be pitied. I shall not pity you, not I. You have killed me, and thrive on it, I think. How strong you are! How many years do you mean to live after I am gone?" Heathcliff had knelt on one knee to embrace her. He attempted to rise, but she seized his hair and kept him down. Yikes, all right. "I wish I could hold you," she continued bitterly, "till we were both dead. I shouldn't care what you suffered. I care nothing for your sufferings. Why shouldn't you suffer? I do. Will you forget me? Will you be happy when I am in the earth? Will you say 20 years hence? Wait, when I'm in the earth, I'm guessing, what is the footnote that they're going to give me for when I'm in earth? Probably a poem that she wrote. Yeah, there you go. "When I am in earth," cross-reference, remember. It's a poem by Emily Bronte. "Cold in the earth and deep in the snow piled above thee. Far, far removed, cold in the dreary grave. Have I forgot my only love to love thee? Served at last by time's all-serving wave." Where am I? Will you say 20 years hence? That's the grave of Catherine Earnshaw. I loved her long ago, and was wretched to lose her. But it is past. I've loved many others since. My children are dearer to me than she was, and at my death I shall not rejoice that I am going to her. I shall be sorry that I must leave them. Will you say so, Heathcliff? And I'm not going to say, like, I'm understanding Catherine in a little bit different of a light now. Maybe because I've had a week off of this book and I'm like, maybe this is a little bit better of her. She just wants, I don't know. Actually, I don't know what she wants, because she's actually being adequately loved by Edgar. not adequately. She's super dysfunctional. She just wants to be important to people in a really dysfunctional way. I don't know. I'm still confused. I don't know what she wants. Do you ever really know what someone who is like Kathy actually wants? Like, she wants to not be abandoned, but she also wants to abandon other people so she can chase after things that she loves. But does she actually really love this guy? Does she just want to be needed? Does she just want to be wanted? Does she just want to die with this person? I don't know. She's a confusing woman. Don't torture me till I'm mad as yourself, cried he, wrenching his head free and grinding his teeth. The two, to a cool spectator, made a strange and fearful picture. Well, might Catherine deem that heaven would be a land of exile to her unless with her mortal body she cast away her mortal character also? Her present countenance had a wild vindictiveness in its white cheek, and a bloodless lip, and a scintillating eye, and she retained in her closed figure a portion of the locks she had been grasping. Oh, wow. As to her companion, while raising himself with one hand, he had taken her arm with him with the other. And so inadequate was his stock of gentleness to the requirement of her condition, that on letting go, I saw 4 distinct impressions left blue in the colorless skin. So she's bruising easily? So she's really sick. Are you possessed with the devil? That was my thought. Oh, which is a little sad that I'm actually thinking the same thoughts as Heathcliff. Heathcliff he has a few fingers pointing back at himself. Are you possessed with the devil? He pursued savagely. To talk in that manner to me? Oh, when you are dying? You have a guarded fondness for both Kathy and Heathcliff. Not people you would want to know, though. Yeah, I'm actually like this chapter. I could probably go back and forth with all the chapters. This chapter makes me feel a little bit more pity for them than typical. Until Heathcliff calls her demon possessed. Do you reflect that all those words will be branded in my memory, and eating deeper eternally after you have left me? You know you lied to say I have killed you. And Catherine, you know that I could as soon forget you as my existence. It is not sufficient for your infernal selfishness that while you are at peace I shall writhe in the torments of hell. I shall not be at peace, moaned Catherine, recalled to a sense of the physical weakness by the violent unequal throbbing of her heart, which beat visibly and audibly under this excess of agitation. She said nothing further till the paroxysms was over. Then she continued more kindly. I'm not wishing you greater torment than I have, Heathcliff. I only wish us never to be parted. And should a word of mine distress you hereafter, think I feel the same distress underground, and for my own sake, forgive me. Come here and kneel down again. You never harmed me in your life. Nay, if you nurse anger, that will be worse to remember than my harsh words. Won't you come here again? Do. Heathcliff went to the back of the chair and leant over, but not so far as to let her see his face, which was livid with emotion. She bent round to look at him. He would not permit it. Turning abruptly, he walked to the fireplace where he stood, silent, with his back towards us. Mrs. Linton's glance followed him suspiciously. Every movement woke a new sentiment in her. After a pause and a prolonged gaze, she resumed, addressing me in accents of indignant disappointment. Oh, see you, Nellie. He would not relent a moment to keep me out of the grave. That is how I'm loved. Well, never mind. That is not my Heathcliff. I shall love mine yet, and take him with me. He's in my soul. And she added musingly, "The thing that irks me most is this shattered prison after all. I'm tired of being enclosed here. I'm wearying to escape into that glorious world and to always be there." It's another poem. The poem called Anticipation. I feel like yeah, but also Joseph could be possessed. Or there could be extra spiritual things there that Joseph is bringing in. Is Joseph secretly worshiping the devil? I feel like the chapters in this book do a good job. Or there's very few chapters that make you have sympathy for them, but this is a good opening chapter for book 2. Or maybe you understand them a little bit. I feel like it's going to go all off the rails in the next few chapters, and they're going to go back to their abuser relationships. But at the moment, this is the best chapter. It's not quite as bad. I'm worrying to escape into that glorious world and to always be there, not seeing it dimly through tears, and yearning for it through the walls of an aching heart, but really with it and in it. Nellie, you think you are better and more fortunate than I, in full health and strength. You are sorry for me. Very soon that will be altered. I shall be sorry for you. I shall be incomparably beyond and above you all. I wonder he won't be near me." She went on to herself. "I thought he wished it. Heathcliff, dear, you should not be sullen now. Do come to me, Heathcliff." In her eagerness she rose and supported herself on the arm of the chair. At that earnest appeal he turned to her, looking absolutely desperate. His eyes, wide and wet, at last flashed fiercely on her. His breast heaved convulsively. An instant they held asunder. And then, how they met, I hardly saw. But Catherine made a spring, and he caught her, and they were locked in an embrace from which I thought my mistress would never be released alive. In fact, to my eyes, she seemed directly insensible. He flung himself into the nearest seat, and on my approaching hurriedly to ascertain if she had fainted, he gnashed at me and foamed like a mad dog, and gathered her to him with greedy jealousy. I did not feel as if I were in the company of a creature of my own species. It appeared that he would not understand, though I spoke to him. So I stood off and held my tongue, in great perplexity. A movement of Catherine's relieved me a little presently. She put up her hand to clasp his neck, and bring her cheek to his, as he held her. While he, in return, covering with her frantic caresses, said wildly, "You teach me now how cruel you've been. Cruel and false. Why did you despise me? Why did you betray your own heart, Kathy? I have not one word of comfort. You deserve this." "You have killed yourself. Yes, you may kiss me and cry, and wring out my kisses and tears. They'll blight you. They'll damn you. You loved me. Then what right had you to leave me? What right answer me for the poor fancy you felt for Linton? Because misery and degradation and death and nothing that God or Satan could inflict would have parted us. You, of your own will, did it. I have not broken your heart. You have broken it. And in breaking it, you have broken mine. So much the worse for me that I am strong. Do I want to live? What kind of living will it be when you, oh God, would you like to live with your soul in the grave?" Dang. Gosh. I mean, that is extreme. That feels like man, you really get their emotion in this chapter. It's a good reminder. That's feels like helps me understand Heathcliff's character, but at the same time not. It's like, so okay. Again, part of this is like, if this were said by a normal person, this would be beautiful. Like, actually, I know, I take back what Heathcliff said is beautiful. That's like he's just putting the blame on her. But there's a sense behind it that it is like his raw emotions. He's expressing to her his feelings in a very good way. Well, no, okay, I take that back. Not a good way. He's expressing his feelings like adequately for what he's feeling. So you feel bad for them. But then on the other side of that, if like two normal people were talking like this, it wouldn't be that out of the question. But the fact of how they treat other people because of this, because of their feelings, that's the real rub of this whole story. Yeah, like, yes, this is written in a really romantic way. But their like degradation of other people is what makes this so grotesque. So, I don't know. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, this is like right now, you can't just read a chapter in isolation, but I can kind of see this. Like what they're saying, yeah, soulmates, terrible, terrible soulmates, but soulmates indeed. But you can kind of see what their pain is for each other, at least. Like how much they long for each other. But the fact that they inflict pain on other people because they can't have what they want is pretty rough. That's pretty rough. That's pretty disgusting. All right, let's finish this chapter. Let me alone, sobbed Catherine. If I've done wrong, I'm dying for it. It is enough. You left me too, but I won't upbraid you. I forgive you. Forgive me. It is hard to forgive and to look at those eyes and to feel those wasted hands, as he answered. Kiss me again, and don't let me see your eyes. I forgive what you have done to me. I love my murderers. I love my murderer. But yours, how can I? What is he talking about there? I forgive what you have done to me. I love my murderer. But yours, how can I? What the heck is he talking about? This is where sometimes I'm like, they're both hallucinating? Is this just a interesting way to say that he hates himself? Oh, his murderer being her. He can't forgive her for hurting herself. Oh, yeah, that makes sense now. Because Heathcliff believes that she has murdered both him and herself. And so, oh man, that's a great sentence for the conflict that he feels. He says, I forgive you for the wrong that you've done to me, but I can't forgive you for the wrong that you've done to yourself. But the funny thing is, the ironic thing in this whole thing, is the wrong that he feels that she's done to herself is in doing wrong to him and not coming to him and loving him. So it's a little bit of a little tangled web that we weave right here. That's a really interesting sentence, though. Weird, but interesting. They were silent, their faces hid against each other and washed by each other's tears. At least I suppose the weeping was on both sides, as it seemed Heathcliff could weep on a great occasion like this. I grew very uncomfortable. It's funny that Nellie's just in the background right here watching this. Meanwhile, the afternoon wore fast away. The man whom I had sent off returned from his errand, and I could distinguish by the shine of the westering sun up the valley the concourse thickening outside Gimmerton Chapel porch. "Service is over," I announced. "My master will be here in half an hour." Heathcliff groaned a curse and strained Catherine closer. She never moved. Ere long I perceived a group of the servants passing up the road toward the kitchen wing. Mr. Linton was not far behind. He opened the gate himself and sauntered slowly up, probably enjoying the lovely afternoon that breathed as soft as summer. "Now he is here," I exclaimed. "For heaven's sake, hurry down. You'll not meet anyone on the front stairs. Do be quick and stay among the trees till he is fairly in." "I must go, Cathy," said Heathcliff, seeking to extricate himself from his companion's arms. "But if I live, I'll see you again before you are asleep. I won't stray 5 yards from your window." "You must not go," she answered, holding him firmly as her strength allowed. "You shall not, I tell you." For 1 hour he pleaded earnestly. "Not for 1 minute," she replied. "I must. Linton will be up immediately," persisted the alarmed intruder. He would have risen and unfixed her fingers by the act. She clung fast, gasping. There was a mad resolution in her face. "Uh-oh." "No!" she shrieked. "Oh, don't go. It is the last time. Edgar will not hurt us, Heathcliff. I shall die. "Damn the fool. There he is," cried Heathcliff, sinking back into his seat. "Hush, my darling. Hush, Catherine. I'll stay. If he shot me so, I'd expire with a blessing on my lips." And there they were fast again. I heard my master mounting the stairs. The cold sweat ran from my forehead. I was horrified. "Are you going to listen to her ravings?" I said passionately. "She does not know what she says. Will you ruin her because she has not wit to help herself? Get up. You could be free instantly. That is the most diabolical deed that you ever did. We are all done for, master, mistress, and servant." Nellie is the only one with sense here. I wrung my hands and cried out, and Mr. Linton hastened his step at the noise. In the midst of my agitation, I was sincerely glad to observe that Catherine's arms had fallen, relaxed, and her head hung down. "She's fainted or dead," I thought. "So much the better. Far better that she should be dead than lingering a burden, and a misery maker to all about her." Dang, Nellie. All right, yikes. Edgar sprang to his unbidden guest, blanched with astonishment and rage. What he meant to do I cannot tell. However, the other stopped all demonstrations at once by placing the lifeless-looking form in his arms. "Look there," he said. "Unless you be a fiend, help her first, then you shall speak to me." He walked into the parlor and sat down. Mr. Linton summoned me, and with great difficulty, after resorting too many means, we managed to restore her to sensation. But she was all bewildered. She sighed and moaned, and knew nobody. Edgar, in his anxiety for her, forgot her hated friend. I did not. I went at the earliest opportunity and besought him to depart, affirming that Catherine was better and that he should hear from her in the morning, or he should hear from me in the morning, how she passed the night. "I shall not refuse to go out of doors," he answered, "but I shall stay in the garden. And Nellie, mind you keep your word tomorrow. I shall be under those larch trees, mind. Or I pay another visit, whether Linton be in or not." He sent a rapid glance through the half door of the chamber, and ascertaining that what I stated was apparently true, delivered the house of his luckless presence. Wow. Dang. Whew. Okay. Wow. Interesting. That was one of the better chapters of this book, I will say. Lots of gushy romantic love, but very dysfunctional people. Yeah, Nellie knows that she's going to be screwed. I feel bad for Nellie. If you can't put Cathy first, yeah, he would have left and not married Isabella too. But he's not functional. So That's not gonna happen. He doesn't. He's functional, but he's not healthy. So of course he's not gonna not marry someone to torture another person because of it. All right, chapter 2, chapter 16. The next chapter is long, so we're gonna just plow ahead and read. That chapter was interesting. There's a lot to that chapter. What is Catherine dying of? Like medically, what does she have? Wait, she's pregnant? Did I miss that she was pregnant? We don't know that yet. Okay. Malaise, stress, depression, yeah. Oh, that was a bit that I forgot to read. Wait, where was that paragraph? I didn't read a paragraph? Interesting. Everything is tuberculosis. Good book. Another reason to not trust Nellie. We don't know that yet. Wait, where is the paragraph that I missed? Interesting. If I read one more paragraph, I might know. The first paragraph of this chapter? Yeah, it says a child right there. Right before Isabella's letter. Okay, let me actually catch up on that. Let me find this letter. What chapter was that letter in? What chapter was that letter? Ah, I'll find it later. We're gonna just go ahead and read chapter 2. We know that she's pregnant now. About 12 o'clock that night was born the Catherine you saw at Wuthering Heights. Interesting. A puny 7 months child. And 2 hours after her mother died, having never... Whoa. Wow. That comes out of nowhere. I did not expect that. Yeah, so she's premature and 2 hours after the mother died, having never recovered sufficient consciousness to miss Heathcliff or know Edgar. Whoa. That is crazy. One down, 2 more to go. That's terrible. But yeah, it's valid. So has to be Edgar's child. Yeah, that whole it makes me want to reread that last chapter now, knowing that she was 7 months pregnant. That's so interesting. Like everything that we're saying, like his not being able to look at her is probably for that. So interesting. Yeah, Nellie's a little sneaky. Huh. Interesting. The latter's distraction at his bereavement is a subject too painful to be dwelt on. The latter's distraction at his bereavement? That mean he wasn't bereaving? Its after effect showed how deep the sorrow sunk. The reverse. A great addition in my eyes was his being left without an heir. I bemoaned that as I gazed on the feeble orphan, and I mentally abused old Linton for what was only natural partiality. The securing his estate to his own daughter, instead of his son's. This footnote is, in the event of Edgar having no male offsprings, the Grange estate would pass to Isabella and subsequently to her male offspring after Edgar's death. Interesting. That whole thing in old society is weird. An unwelcomed infant it was. Poor thing. It might have wailed out of life, and nobody cared a morsel during those first hours of existence. We redeemed the neglect afterward, but its beginning was as friendless as its end was likely to be. Gosh, Nellie. Nellie's just going crazy. Edgar Linton and his head laid on the pillow, and his eyes shut. His young and fair features were almost as death-like as those forms beside him, as those of the form beside him, and almost as fixed. Okay, weird. I just had a random thought. Sorry, 1 second. Heathcliff was oddly physical with her in a weird way. Actually, not necessarily a weird way. When I read the first chapter for the first time, I go, he just can't get her out of her grasp. Is there an interpretation that you can have of that previous chapter where he's almost trying to hug her so hard that he's almost trying to push the baby out prematurely, potentially to, like, is he trying to destroy the baby? Is that a thing? Like, I don't know if I would hug a 7-month pregnant woman that hard and like almost like bruising her arms and grasping her like that. Like, can you push on, I don't know, biologically, can you like push on a woman's belly so hard that, like, the child is damaged and messed up and like ends up dying? Is he trying to take out his anger on this whole situation of like his own death on this child to some extent? They have such poor boundaries. I feel like that's what my initial read was. It was just they had no boundaries and were just going crazy. But I wouldn't put it past him to do something weird like that. Like, maybe in a man's mind. I mean, Heathcliff is like probably knows biology more than I do. But maybe he's trying to do something really weird by that. Anyway, random thoughts that I have. Let's keep reading. Next morning, bright and cheerful out of doors, stole softened through the blinds of the silent room and suffused the couch and its occupant with a mellow, tender glow. Edgar Linton had his head laid on his pillow, and his eyes shut. His young and fair features were almost as death-like as those of the form beside him, and almost as fixed. But his was a hush of exhausted anguish, and hers of perfect peace. Her brow smooth, her lids closed, her lips wearing the expression of a smile. Now, I think that Heathcliff is going to be so mad at Edgar for killing, or no, Edgar is going to be so mad at Heathcliff because he's going to recognize that Heathcliff came in that moment and potentially is the reason that she's dead. But I think that he's going to go and attempt to try to kill Heathcliff, and Heathcliff's eventually going to kill him. That's my guess, but I don't know. I kind of just hope he just rides off into the sunset. Not the sunset, the bloody sunset, and just leaves. All right, man. But his was the hush of exhausted anguish, and hers of perfect peace. Her brow smoothed, her lids closed, her lips wearing the expression of a smile. No angel in heaven could be more beautiful than she appeared. and I partook of the infinite calm in which she lay. My mind was never in a holier frame than when I gazed on that untroubled image of divine rest. I instinctively echoed the words she had uttered a few hours before, incomparably beyond and above us all, whether still on earth now or now in heaven, her spirit is at home with God. I don't know if it be a peculiarity in me, but I am seldom otherwise than happy while watching in the chambers of death. Should no frenzy or despairing mourner share the duty with me, I see a repose that neither earth nor hell can break, and I feel an assurance of the endless and shadowless hereafter, the eternity they have entered, where life is boundless in its duration, and love in its sympathy and joy in its fullness. I notice on that occasion how much selfishness there is even in a love like Mr. Linton's, when he so regretted Catherine's blessed release. Interesting. To be sure, one might have doubted, after a wayward, impatient existence she had led, whether she merited a haven of peace at last. One might doubt in seasons of cold reflection, but not then, in the presence of her corpse. It asserted its own tranquility, which seemed a pledge of equal quiet to its former inhabitants. Modern editions have tended to normalize the sentence by printing inhabitant. However, both the 1847 first edition and Charlotte's 1850 amended edition use the plural of this noun, which is richly suggestive of the shared identity of Catherine and Heathcliff. Interesting. Yeah, so it would say it asserted its own tranquility, which seemed a pledge of equal quiet to its former inhabitant. Or really what she wanted, inhabitants. Interesting. Yeah, I don't think that probably happened with the Heathcliff intentionally trying to kill the child in the embrace. But I wouldn't put it past Heathcliff. That's just one of those things. You know, he's just a weird dude. Do you believe such people are happy in the other world, sir? I'd give a great deal to know. I declined answering Mrs. Dean's question, which struck me as something heterodox. She proceeded. Retracing the course of Catherine Linton, I fear we have no right to think she is, but we'll leave her with her Maker. The master looked asleep, and I ventured soon after sunrise to quit the room and steal out of the pure, refreshing air. The servant thought me gone to shake off my drowsiness, or to shake off the drowsiness of my protracted watch. In reality, my chief motive was seeing Mr. Heathcliff. If he had remained among the larches all night, he would have heard nothing of the stir at the Grange, unless perhaps he might catch the gallop of the messengers going to Gimmerton. If he had come near, he probably would be aware from the lights flitting to and fro, and the opening of the shutter to the outer doors, that all was not right within. I wished yet feared to find him. I felt the terrible news must be told, and I longed to get it over. But how to do it, I did not know, because she probably thinks she's going to be murdered if she tells him. He was there, at least a few yards further in the park, leant against an old ash tree, his hat off and his hair soaked with the dew that gathered on the budded branches and fell pattering around them. He had been standing out a long time in that position, for I saw a pair of ousels passing and repassing scarcely 3 feet from him. A European blackbird. Interesting. I like birds. Busy in building their nest, and regarding his proximity no more than that of a piece of timber. They flew off at my approach, and he raised his eyes and spoke. "She's dead," he said. "I have not waited for you to learn that. Put away your handkerchief. Don't snivel before me. Damn you all, she wants none of your tears." I was weeping as much for him as her. We do sometimes pity creatures that have none of the feeling either for themselves or others. Interesting. And when I first looked into his face, I perceived that he had got intelligence of the catastrophe, and that a foolish notion struck me that his heart was quelled, and he prayed because his lips moved, and his gaze was bent on the ground. Prayed, or a demon possessed? I just keep going back to that. I don't actually think so, but I think it's a read. I think it's an interesting read on the text that he could be. This is so interesting. Whoa, Nellie is the villain of the story? I definitely don't know if that's the case. Maybe I'm just falling into Nellie's guises, but Nellie's probably my favorite character in this. I don't really like her, but I understand what her motives are in trying to literally stay alive when you're talking to two people like this. I probably wouldn't view her as the real villain, but that's an interesting take. I like that. It's kind of fun. We should do something too where, like, if you guys have a different take on a story than we're reading, you should like send them in, send like video responses, and then I could like post them on the channel. That'd be kind of fun. All right, let's keep reading. Yes, she's dead, I answered, checking my sobs and drying my cheeks. Gone to heaven, I hope, where we may everyone join her, if we take due warning, and leave our evil ways to follow good. Did she take due warning then? Asked Heathcliff, attempting a sneer. Did she die like a saint? Come, give me a true history of the event. How did... He endeavored to pronounce the name, but could not manage it. And compressing his mouth, he held a silent combat with his inward agony, defying, meanwhile, my sympathies with an unflinching, ferocious stare. How did she die? He resumed. At last, fain, notwithstanding his hardihood, to have support behind him. For after the struggle, he trembled, in spite of himself, to his very finger ends. Poor wretch, I thought. You have a heart and nerves the same as your brother men. Why should you be so anxious to conceal them? Your pride cannot blind God. You tempt him to wring them, till he forces a cry of humiliation. That's interesting, too. Nellie's like, look, you're not as tough as you seem. Just cry. You're okay. She's like having a little bit of pity on him. Quietly as a lamb, I answered aloud. She drew a sigh and stretched herself like a child reviving and sinking again to sleep. And 5 more times after, I felt one little pulse out of her heart and nothing more. And did she ever mention me? He asked, hesitating as if he dreaded the answer to his question would introduce details that he could not bear to hear. Her senses never returned. She recognized nobody from the time you left her, I said. She lies with a sweet smile on her face, and her latest ideas wandered back to pleasant earlier days. Her life closed in a gentle dream. May she wake as kindly in the other world. May she wake in torment, he cried. Gosh. With frightful vehemence and stamping his foot and groaning in a sudden paroxysm of unforgivable passion. Why, she's a liar to the end. Where is she? Not there, not in heaven, not perished. Where? Oh, you said you cared nothing for my sufferings, and I pray one prayer. I repeat it till my tongue stiffens. Catherine Earnshaw, may you not rest as long as I am living. You said I killed you. Haunt me then. Interesting. There's the idea of like, there's the idea of the supernaturalness of this book. That's like the beginning. She actually is haunting him. And he wants to be haunted. Oh, man. What a bunch of weird people. I know that ghosts have wandered the earth. Be with me always. Take any form. Drive me mad. Only do not leave me in this abyss where I cannot find you. Oh God, it is unutterable. I cannot live without my life. I cannot live without my soul. I mean, That's kind of a that's kind of romantic. Hmm. It's so strange too, because behind their ridiculous attitudes are two people that just want. I don't know. Actually, I didn't even know anymore with this novel. Yeah, idolatry, but still, like, think about this. He's essentially saying that Catherine is his soul, and he says, like, the whole first part of this isn't romantic, and then all of a sudden he says this: "Do not leave me in this abyss where I cannot find you. Oh God, it is unutterable. I cannot live without my life," being Catherine. "I cannot live without my soul." That's a banger line. That's a great line, to be honest. Like, even before that, like, someone that you love dies, and you say this. Like, okay, it's just in the way that you read this. You can read it with what I probably would say is as his attitude, which is "be with me always, take any form, drive me mad." Like, there's like anger in his voice. Or you could just read this as like him grieving and saying this in a romantic way. Like, how sweet would this be if, like, when when Elizabeth dies and let's say Darcy's still alive, and he says, "Be with me always," and he's reaching his hand out for the grave. "Be with me always. Take any form, drive me mad. Only do not leave me in this abyss where I cannot find you. Oh God, it is unutterable. I cannot live without my life. I cannot live without my soul." I feel like that's kind of a good line. That's a kind of a good line. He dashed his head against the knotted trunk. All right, well, I take back everything I just said. "And lifted his eyes up, howled, not like a man, but like a savage beast getting goaded to death with knives and spears." What is this? She literally throws the next sentence in there that you're like, this guy is not. What is he? All right, we gotta finish this chapter. "I observed several splashes of blood about the bark and tree, and his hand and forehead were both stained." Like, I like the supernatural part of this is just so weird. Does a normal person do this? Is there ever anybody who's like, this is like house elf Dobby behavior? This is why I just keep thinking it's a demon possession. I've just never seen this in my life. Medically. Like, I've seen unwell people before, but not to this degree of mental instability. Like, my dude, imagine this is like literally like, and it's funny because this is like Shakespearean. Like, imagine if all the characters in Shakespeare were insane. Imagine, like, okay, this is actually a hilarious image, to be honest. Shakespeare has a line where in the peak of someone dying, this character says this. Imagine this. He goes out to the stands and is looking at all the audience and says this: "Be with me always. I believe that ghosts can have wandered, or be with me always. Take any form. Drive me mad. Only do not leave me in this abyss where I cannot find you. Oh God, it is unutterable. I cannot live without my life. I cannot live without my soul." And everyone in the audience is just totally quiet. Everyone's super quiet. And then all of a sudden this character walks over to a tree and just starts banging their head against the tree, and just blood is splattering everywhere. It's ludicrous. It's absurdity. It's insane. It's insanity. This is crazy. Like, this is Shakespeare. This is Shakespeare meets like mentally unstable people, which I guess there are characters in Shakespeare that are kind of mentally unstable, but this is crazy. Gothic is just dark romance. This is crazy to me. Hamlet says something similar about the ghost of his father. I love that. So this just feels very like very Shakespearean. Man, we gotta read some Shakespeare. Okay, let's keep reading. Let's finish this chapter. It hardly moved my compassion. Both his hand and his forehead were stained. Probably the scene that I witnessed was a repetition of others acted during the night. It hardly moved my compassion. It appalled me. Still, I felt reluctant to quit him so. But the moment he recollected himself enough to notice me watching, he thundered a command for me to go, and I obeyed. He was beyond my skill to quiet or console. Mrs. Linton's funeral was appointed to take place on the Friday following her decease. Until then, her coffin remained uncovered and strewn with flowers and scented leaves. In the great drawing room, Linton spent his days and nights there, a sleepless guardian, and a circumstance concealed from all but me. Heathcliff spent his nights, at least outside, equally a stranger to repose. That's an interesting image. I held no communication with him. Still, I was conscious of his design to enter, if he could. And on the Tuesday, a little after dark, when my master from sheer fatigue had been compelled to retire a couple of hours, I went and opened one of the windows, moved by his perseverance to give him a chance of bestowing on the fading image of his idol one final adieu. He did not omit to avail himself the opportunity. Cautiously and briefly, too cautiously to betray his presence by the slightest noise. Indeed, I shouldn't have discovered that he had been there, except for his disarrangement of the drapery about the corpse's face, and for observing on the floor a curl of light hair, fastened by a silver thread, which on examination I ascertained to have taken back from a locket hung around Catherine's neck. Heathcliff had opened the trinket and cast out its contents, replaced them by a black lock of his own. Wow, I twisted the two and enclosed them together. Mr. Earnshaw was, of course, invited to attend the remains of his sister to the grave, and he sent no excuse, but he never came, so that beside her husband the mourners were wholly composed of tenants and servants. Isabella was not asked. The place of Catherine's interment, to the surprise of the villagers, was neither in the chapel nor the carved monument of the Lintons, nor yet by the tombs of her own relations outside. It was dug on a green slope in a corner of the kirkyard where the wall is so low that the heath and bilberry plants have climbed over it from the moor, and peat mold almost buries it. Her husband lies in the same spot now, and they have each a simple headstone above, and a plain gray block at their feet to mark their graves. Interesting why they were buried there. So she could look out into the moor is interesting. That's kind of sweet. I actually don't mind that. All right, chapter 3, aka chapter 17. I feel like this is really where we're going to devolve, where Heathcliff is just going to be nuts. All right, this is a long chapter, so buckle up, everyone. I'm going to try to read this fast. I gotta say, these two chapters are my two favorite chapters so far. I feel like I'm saying that with fingers crossed because I'm a little nervous. What's gonna happen now. And how far is this time jump gonna be? It's not that Linton is dead now. That's just like where he in the future was gonna die. Yeah, that's just a weird one. Like he didn't actually die, but that's like, where he in the future is going to die. Insane hysteria only applied to women. That's kind of sad because they're like really they're like the same. Yeah, this kind of feels like the calm before the storm. We'll see. I hope chapter 3 is a little bit more of the same. If the rest of the book is like this, I actually wouldn't mind it, but it's not. We all know that. Chapter 3. That Friday made the last of our fine days for a month. In the evening, the weather broke and the wind shifted from south to northeast and brought rain, first and then sleet and snow. Uh-oh. On the morrow, one could hardly imagine that there had been 3 weeks of summer. The primroses and the crocuses were hidden under wintry drifts. The larks were silent. The young leaves of the early trees, smitten and blackened, and dreary and chill and dismal, that morrow did creep over. My master kept his room. I took possession of the lonely parlor, converting it into a nursery. And there I was sitting with the moaning doll of a child laid on my knee, rocking it to and fro, and watching meanwhile the still driving flakes build up the uncurtained window. When the door opened, and some person entered, out of breath and laughing. My anger was greater than my astonishment for a minute. I supposed it one of the maids, and I cried, "Have done! How dare you show your giddiness here? What would Mr. Linton say if he heard you?" "Excuse me," answered a familiar voice, "but I know Edgar is in bed, and I cannot stop myself." With that, the speaker came forward to the fire, panting and holding her hand to her side. "I've run the whole way from Wuthering Heights," she continued after a pause, "except where I've flown. I couldn't count the number of falls I've had. Oh, I'm aching all over. Don't be alarmed. There shall be an explanation as soon as I can give it. Only just have the goodness to step out and order the carriage to take me on to Gimmerton, and tell a servant to seek up a few clothes in my wardrobe." The intruder was Mrs. Heathcliff. She certainly seemed in no laughing predicament. Is she laughing because she's escaped? Maybe she's happy. Her hair streamed on her shoulders, dripping with snow and water. She was dressed in the girlish dress she commonly wore, befitting her age more than her position, a low frock with short sleeves and nothing on either head or neck. The frock was of light silk, and clung to her with wet, and her feet were protected merely by thin slippers. Add to this a deep cut under one ear, which only the cold prevented from bleeding profusely, a white face scratched and bruised, and a frame hardly able to support itself through fatigue. And you may fancy my first fright was not much allayed when I had leisure to examine her. "My dear young lady," I exclaimed, "I'll stir nowhere, and hear nothing till you've removed every article of your clothes and put on dry things, and certainly you shall not go to Gimmerton tonight. So it's needless to order the carriage." "Certainly I shall," she said, "walking or riding, yet I've no objection to dress myself decently. And see how it flows down my neck now. The fire does make it smart." She insisted on my fulfilling her direction before she would let me touch her, and not till after the coachman had been instructed to get ready, and the maid set to pack up some necessary attire, did I obtain her consent for binding the wound and helping to change her garments. "Now, Ellen," she said, when my task was finished, and she was seated in the easy chair in the hearth with a cup of tea before her, "you sit down opposite me, and put poor Catherine's baby away. I don't like to see it. You mustn't think I care little for Catherine, because I behaved so foolishly on entering. I've cried too, bitterly, yes, more than anyone else has reason to cry. We parted unreconciled, you remember, and I shan't forgive myself. But for all that, I was going to sympathize with him. The brute beast. Oh, give me the poker. This is the last thing of his I shall have about me." She slipped a gold ring from her third finger and threw it on the floor. "I'll smash it," she continued, striking with childish spite, "and then I'll burn it." And she took and dropped and misused the misused article among the coals. "There, he shall buy another, if he gets me back again. He'd be capable of coming to seek me." Under marriage laws, Heathcliff could forcibly compel Isabella's return to him. Uh-oh. He's probably gonna do that. He can seek me. To tease Edgar I dare not stay, lest that notion should possess his wicked head. And besides, Edgar has not been kind, has he? And I won't be coming, and I won't come suing for his assistance, nor will I bring him into more trouble. Necessity compelled me to seek shelter here, though if I had not learnt he was out of this way. I was having a good dream right now. He's running in his dream because he's really happy. He's wagging his tail while he's sleeping. It's cute. Nellie is the mistress of the Grange and is loving it. Yeah, she's like living her best life. No burning words showed up in the ring. It all of a sudden goes, one ring to rule them all. Necessity compelled me to seek shelter here. Though if I had not learned he was out of the way, I'd have halted at the kitchen, washed my face, warmed myself, got you to bring me what I wanted, and departed again to anywhere out of reach of that incarnate goblin. Ah, he was in such a fury. If he had caught me, it is a pity Earnshaw is not his match in strength. I would have run till I'd see him all but demolished, had Hindley been able to do it. Well, don't talk so fast, miss, I interrupted. You'll disorder the handkerchief I have tied around your face, and make the cut bleed again. Drink your tea, and take your breath, and go over laughing. Laughter is sadly out of place under this roof, and in your condition. An undeniable truth, she replied. Listen to that child. It maintains a constant wail. Send it out of my hearing. For an hour I shan't stay any longer. I rang the bell and committed it to a servant's care, and then I inquired what had urged her to escape from Wuthering Heights in such an unlikely plight, and where she meant to go, as she refused remaining with us. I ought and I wish to remain, she answered, to cheer Edgar and to take the baby, and to take care of the baby, for two things, and because the Grange is my right home, but I tell you, he wouldn't let me. Do you think he could bear to see me grow fat and merry, and could bear to think that we were tranquil, and not resolve on poisoning our comfort? Now I have the satisfaction of being sure that he detests me to the point of its annoying him seriously, to have me within earshot or eyesight. I notice when I enter his presence, the muscles of his countenance are involuntarily distorted into an expression of hatred, partly arising from his knowledge of the good causes I have to feel the sentiment for him, and partly from original aversion. It is strong enough to make me feel pretty certain that he would not chase me over England, supposing I contrive to clear escape, and therefore I must get quite away. I've recovered from my first desire to be killed by him. I'd rather he'd kill himself. He has extinguished my love effectually, and so I'm at ease. I can recollect how I love him. I can recollect yet how I loved him. I can dimly imagine that I could still be loving him if he had doted on me, the devilish nature would have revealed its existence somehow. Catherine had an awfully perverted taste to esteem him so dearly, knowing him so well. Monster! Would that he could be blotted out of the creation and out of my memory. Dang, she's going off. Hush, hush, he's a human being, I said. Be more charitable. There are worse men than he is yet. This is like the discussion of the book. Are these people human? He is not human being, she retorted, and he had no claim on my charity. Now, this is an interesting thing as well, because, I think this is, I don't know if she's writing this book in this way, but it seems like a critique on not a critique on racism, some kind of commentary on racism. Like the idea of changelings and how those were kind of like racist remarks for people, and how he obviously is a terrible person. But the idea of a human being, someone being less than a human being, how much more is that brought on by Heathcliff's race? Like, I don't necessarily think that's the cause, because I think he's just a terrible person in this. It doesn't matter, like, what race you are. You can just be a terrible person. But I wonder how it changes the narrator's perspectives, how it changes maybe Nellie's perspectives for certain things, or for like other people, how they view him. Which I guess why a lot of people have said that Nellie is an unreliable narrator. But I don't know. I think that Heathcliff is just a terrible person. Anyway, let's keep reading. He's not a human being, she retorted, and he had no claim on my charity. I gave him my heart, and he took it and pinched it to death and flung it back to me. People feel with their hearts, Ellen, and since he has destroyed mine, I have not power to feel for him. I would not, though he groaned from this to his dying day and wept tears of blood for Catherine. No, indeed, I wouldn't. And here Isabella began to cry, but immediately dashing the water from her lashes, she recommenced. You asked what has driven me to flight at last. I was compelled to attempt it because I had succeeded in arousing his rage a pitch above his malignity. Pulling out the nerves with red-hot pincers requires more coolness than knocking on the head. He was worked up to forget the fiendish prudence he boasted of, and proceeding to murderous violence, I experienced pleasure in being able to exasperate him. The sense of pleasure woke my instinct of self-preservation, so I fairly broke free. And if ever I come into his hands again, he is welcome to signal revenge. Now, that's weird. Like, this again, she's in a terrible situation, but her poking and prodding doesn't necessarily do all that great. I feel like Isabella's POV is mainly from the treatment that she receives. Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Kathy. I think it's just because of his behavior that she's calling him a beast, not a human. I'm definitely with you on that one. I don't like that she's experiencing pleasure in exasperating him. I know, I kind of like get it at that point. Like, you get pleasure in whatever you can, but like there's got to be another way. Yesterday, Mr. Earnshaw would have been at the funeral. He kept himself sober for the purpose, tolerably sober, not going to bed mad at 6 o'clock and getting up drunk at 12. Consequently, he rose in suicidal low spirits, as fit for the church as for a dance. And instead, he sat down by the fire and swallowed gin or brandy by tumblerfuls. Heathcliff, I shudder to name him, has been a stranger in the house from last Sunday till today. Whether the angels have fed him or his kin beneath, I cannot tell. But he has not eaten a meal with us for nearly a week. He has just come home at dawn and gone upstairs to his chamber, locking himself in, as if anybody dreamt of coveting his company. There he has continued, praying like a Methodist. Only the deity he implored is senseless dust and ashes, and God, when addressed, was curiously confounded with his own black father. Interesting. There's a little racism there. After concluding these precious orisons, and they generally lasted till he grew hoarse, his own black father, is that talking about God when addressed was curiously confounded with his own black father? Is that talking about the devil? Or is that talking about Heathcliff's black father? Is that talking about Satan? I'm talking about the devil. Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. He's praying to Kathy. Okay. Yikes. After concluding these precious orisons, and they lasted generally till he grew hoarse, and his voice was strangled in his throat, he would be off again. Always straight down to the Grange. I wondered Edgar did not send for a constable and give him into custody. For me, I grieved, as I was about Catherine. It was impossible to avoid regarding this season of deliverance from degrading oppression as a holiday. I recovered spirits sufficient to hear Joseph's eternal lectures without weeping, and to move up and down the house, less with the foot of a frightened thief than formerly. You wouldn't think that I should cry at anything that Joseph could say, but he and Hareton are detestable companions, and rather sit with Hindley than hear his awful talk. than with the little master and his staunch supporters, that odious old man. When Heathcliff is in, I'm often obliged to seek the kitchen and their society, or starve among the damp, uninhabitable chambers when he is not, as was the case this week. I established a table and a chair at one corner of the house fire, and never mind how Mr. Earnshaw may occupy himself, and he does not interfere with my arrangements. He is quieter now than he used to be, if no one provokes him, more sullen and depressed, and less furious. Joseph affirms he's an altered man, that the Lord has touched his heart, and he's saved so as by fire. I'm not puzzled to detect signs of favorable change, but it is not my business. Yesterday evening I sat in my nook, reading some old books till late on toward 12. It seemed so dismal to go upstairs with the wild snow blowing outside, and my thoughts continually reverting by the kirkyard and the new made grave. I dared hardly lift my eyes from the page before me. That melancholy scene so instantly usurped its place. Hindley sat opposite, his head leant on my hand, perhaps meditating on the same subject. He had ceased drinking at a point below irrationality, and had neither stirred nor spoken during 2 or 3 hours. There was no sound through the house, but the moaning wind which shook the windows every now and then, the faint crackling of coals, and the click of my snuffers as I removed at intervals the long wick of the candle. Hareton and Joseph were probably fast asleep in bed. It was very, very sad, and while I read, I sighed, for it seemed as if all joy had vanished from the world, never to be restored. The doleful silence was broken at length by the sound of the kitchen latch. Heathcliff had returned from his watch, usually earlier than usual, owing, I suppose, to the sudden storm. That entrance was fastened, and we heard him coming round to get in by the other. I rose with an irrepressible expression of what I felt on my lips, which induced my companion, who had been staring toward the door, to turn and look at me. "I'll keep him out 5 minutes," he exclaimed. "You won't object?" "No, you may keep him out the whole night for me," I answered. "Do. Put the key in the lock, and draw the bolts." Earnshaw accomplished this ere his guest reached the front. He then came and brought his chair to the other side of the table, leaning over it, and searching my eyes in sympathy with burning hate that gleamed from his. As he both looked and felt like an assassin, he couldn't exactly find that, but he discovered enough to encourage him to speak. "You and I," he said, "have each a great debt to settle with the man out yonder. If we were neither of us cowards, we might combine to discharge it. Are you as soft as your brother? Are you willing to endure the last and not once attempt a repayment?" "I'm weary of enduring now," I replied, "and I'd be glad of a retaliation that wouldn't recoil on myself. But treachery and violence are spears pointed at both ends. They wound those who resort to them worse than their enemies." Dang. Okay, Isabella, a young woman with a lot of wisdom there. I don't know if she's actually going to be able to do this, but we'll see. "I'd be glad of retaliation that wouldn't recoil on myself, but treachery and violence are spears pointed at both ends. They wound those who resort on them worse than their enemies." That's a great line. Dang. "Treachery and violence are a just return for treachery and violence," cried Hindley. "Mrs. Heathcliff, I'll ask you to do nothing but sit still and be dumb. Tell me now, can you? I'm sure you would have had as much pleasure as I in witnessing the conclusion of the fiend's existence. He'll be your death unless you overreach him, and he'll be my ruin. Damn the hellish villain. He knocks at the door as if he were master already here. Promise to hold your tongue, and before that clock strikes, it wants 3 minutes of one. You're a free woman. You're a free woman." He took the implements which I described to you in my letter from his breast, and would have turned down the candle. I snatched it away, however, and seized his arm. "I'll not hold my tongue," I said. "You mustn't touch him. Let the door remain shut and be quiet." "No, I formed my resolution. By God, I'll execute it," cried the desperate being. I'll do you the kindness in spite of yourself. Inherit injustice. And you needn't trouble your head to screen me. Catherine is gone. Nobody alive would regret me, or be ashamed though I cut my throat this minute. And it's time to make an end. I might as well have struggled with a bear, or reasoned with a lunatic. The only resource left me was to run to a lattice and warn his intended victim of the fate which awaited him. You'd better seek shelter somewhere else tonight, I exclaimed in a rather triumphant tone. Mr. Earnshaw has a mind to shoot you if you persist in endeavoring to enter. You'd better open the door, he answered, addressing me by some elegant term that I don't care to repeat. I shall not meddle in the matter, I retorted again. Come in and get shot, if you please. I've done my duty. With that, I shut the window and returned to my place by the fire, having too small a stock of hypocrisy at my command to pretend any anxiety for the danger that menaced him. Earnshaw swore passionately at me, affirming that I loved the villain yet, and calling me all sorts of names for the base spirit I evinced. And I, in my secret heart, and conscience never reproached me, thought what a blessing it would be for him should Heathcliff put him out of his misery, and what a blessing for me should he send Heathcliff right to his abode. As I sat nursing these reflections, the casement behind me was banged on the floor by a blow from the latter individual, and his black countenance looked blightingly through. The stanchions stood too close to suffer his shoulder to follow, and I smiled, exulting in my fancied security. His hair and clothes were whitened with snow, and his sharp cannibal teeth, revealed by cold and wrath, gleamed through the dark. Isabella, let me in, or I'll make you repent, he groaned. I'll make you repent, he gurned, as Joseph calls it. I cannot commit murder, I replied. Mr. Hindley stands with sentinel with a knife and loaded pistol. Let me in by the kitchen door, he said. Hindley will be there before me, I answered. And that's a poor love of yours that cannot bear a shower of snow. We were left at peace in our beds as long as the summer moons shone. But the moment a blast of winter returns, you must run for shelter. Heathcliff, if I were you, I'd go stretch myself over her grave and die like a faithful dog. The world is surely not worth living in now, is it? You had distinctly impressed on me the idea that Catherine was the whole joy of your life. I can't imagine how you think of surviving her loss. She's got a great point there. Sheesh. He there, is he? Exclaimed my companion, rushing to the gap. If I can get my arm out, I can hit him. I'm afraid, Ellen. You'll set me down as really wicked. But you don't know all, so don't judge. I would have aided or abetted an attempt on even his life for anything. Wish that he were dead, I must. And therefore I was fearfully disappointed and unnerved by the terror for the consequence of my taunting speech, when he flung himself on Earnshaw's weapon and wrenched it from his grasp. The charge exploded, and the knife, springing back, closed into its owner's wrist. Heathcliff pulled it away by main force, splitting up the flesh as it passed on, and thrust it dripping into his pocket. Then he took a stone, struck down the division between the two windows, and sprung in. His adversary had fallen senseless with excessive pain, and the flow of blood that gushed from an artery or a large vein. Ooh, he gone die. The ruffian kicked and trampled on him, and dashed his head repeatedly against the flags, holding me with one hand, meantime, to prevent me summoning Joseph. He exerted preterhuman self-denial in obtaining from finishing him completely, but getting out of breath, he finally desisted and dragged the apparently inanimate body into the settle. There he tore off the sleeve of Earnshaw's coat and bound up the wound with brutal roughness. Interesting, spitting and cursing during the operation as energetically as he kicked before. Being at liberty, I lost no time in seeking the old servant, who, having gathered by degrees the purport of my hasty tale, hurried below, gasping as he descended the steps two at once. What is there to do now? What is there to do now? There is this to do, thundered Heathcliff, that your master is mad, and should he last another month, I'll have him to an asylum. And how the devil did you come to fasten me out, you toothless hound? Don't stand muttering and mumbling there. Come, I'm not going to nurse him. Wash that stuff away, and mind the sparks of your candle. It is more than half brandy. Una sao? Oh gosh, we need a translator again. Hold on, let me look one up. Wuthering Heights Joseph's speech. Chapter 17. I don't know, chapter 17. There we go. I'd rather he'd gone himself for the doctor. I would have taken care of the master better than him, and he wasn't dead when I left. Nothing of the sort. That's not what he said. He says, unsoa. We don't have the translation for this. Of course we don't. Y'all been murdering on him. Y'all been murdering on him, exclaimed Joseph, lifting his hands and eyes lit in horror. If I've ever seed a seat like this, may the Lord... Heathcliff gave him a push onto his knees in the middle of the blood and flung a towel to him. But instead of proceeding to dry it up, he joined his hands and began a prayer which excited my laughter from its odd phraseology. I was in the condition of mind to be shocked at nothing, in fact. I was at reckless as some malefactors showed themselves at the foot of the gallows. Oh, I forgot you, said the tyrant. You shall do that. Down with you. And you conspire with him against me, do you, viper? There, that is work fit for you. He shook till my teeth rattled and pitched me beside Joseph, who steadily concluded his supplications and then rose, vowing he would set off for the Grange directly. Mr. Linton Mr. Linton was a magistrate, and though he had 50 wives dead, he should inquire into this. He was so obstinate in his resolution that Heathcliff deemed it expedient to compel from my lips a recapitulation of what had taken place, standing over me, heaving with malevolence as I reluctantly delivered their account in answer to his questions. It required a great deal of labor to satisfy the old man that he was not the aggressor, especially with my hardly wrung replies. However, Mr. Earnshaw soon convinced him that he was still alive. He hastened to administer a dose of spirits by their succor, and by their succor his master presently regained motion and consciousness. Heathcliff, aware that he was ignorant of the treatment received while insensible, called him deliriously intoxicated, and said that he should not notice his atrocious conduct further, but advised him to get a bed. To my joy, he left us after giving this judicious counsel, and kindly stretched himself on the hearthstone. I departed to my own room, marveling that I had escaped so easily. This morning when I came down about half an hour before noon, Mr. Earnshaw was sitting by the fire, deadly sick. His evil genius, almost as gaunt and ghastly, leant against the chimney. Neither appeared inclined to dine, and having waited till all was cold on the table, I commenced alone. Nothing hindered me from eating heartily, and I experienced a certain sense of satisfaction and superiority as, at intervals, I cast a look toward my silent companions and felt the comfort of a quiet conscience within me. After I had done, I ventured on the usual liberty of drawing near the fire, going round Earnshaw's seat, and kneeling on the corner beside him. Heathcliff did not glance my way, and I gazed up and contemplated his features almost as confidently as if they had been turned to stone. His forehead, that I once thought so manly, and that I now think so diabolical, was shaded with a heavy cloud. His basilisk... Oh, we got a little basilisk mention. We're doing a lot of Harry Potter stuff here. His basilisk eyes were nearly quenched by sleeplessness, and weeping perhaps, for the lashes were wet then. His lips devoid of their ferocious sneer, and sealed in an expression of unspeakable sadness. Had it been another, I would have covered my face in the presence of such grief. In his case, I was gratified, and ignoble as it seemed to a fallen enemy, I couldn't miss the chance of sticking in a dart. His weakness was the only time I could taste the delight of paying wrong for wrong. Fee, miss, I interrupted. One might suppose you would never open a Bible in your life. If God afflict your enemies, surely that ought to suffice you. It is both mean and presumptuous to add your torture to his. In general, I'll allow that it would be, Ellen, she continued. But what misery laid on Heathcliff could content me, unless I had a hand in it. I'd rather he suffered less, if I might cause his sufferings, and he might know that I was the cause. Oh, I owe him so much. On only one condition can I hope to forgive him. It is, if he may take an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, for every wrench of agony, return a wrench, reduce him to my level. As he was the first to injure, make him the first to implore pardon. And then why, Ellen? And why then, Ellen, I might show you some generosity. But it is utterly impossible. I can never be revenged, and therefore I cannot forgive him. Hindley wanted some water, and I handed him a glass, and asked him how he was. Now, this line is really interesting too. The idea he says here, it is utterly impossible, or she says, I can never be revenged, and therefore I cannot forgive him. This is going to help me understand really what Emily Bronte is writing. I'm going to learn what she's talking about through the journey of Isabella. If Isabella ends up like dying and like having a miserable life and being dragged back, then I think this whole story is going to be about how revenge is really just like exactly what she said, because she's kind of going back on what she said before. I guess she's talking about treachery, which is different, I guess, from revenge, but it's kind of the same idea. Treachery and violence are spears pointed at both ends. They wound those who resort to them, worse than their enemies. Yeah, I guess it's different from revenge to some extent. But it's still an interesting line. Hindley wanted some water, and I handed him a glass, and asked him how he was. Not as ill as I wish, he replied, but leaving out of my arm, every inch of me is sore as if it had been fighting with a legion of imps. So does he not remember? Yes, no wonder, was my next remark. Catherine used to boast that she stood between you and bodily harm. She meant that certain persons would not hurt you for fear of offending her. It is well that people don't really rise from their graves, or last night she might have witnessed a repulsive scene. Are not you bruised and cut all over your chest and shoulders? I can't say, he answered. What do you mean? Did he dare to strike me when I was down? He trampled on and kicked you and dashed you on the ground, I whispered. And his mouth watered to tear you with his teeth, because he's only half man, not so much. Mr. Earnshaw looked up, like me, to the countenance of our mutual foe, who, absorbed in his anguish, seemed insensible to anything around him. The longer he stood, the plainer his reflections revealed the blackness through his features. Oh God, if you would give me but strength to strangle him in my last agony, I'd go to hell with joy, groaned the impatient man, writhing the rise and sinking back into despair, convinced of his inadequacy for the struggle. Nay, it's enough that he should murder one of you, I observed. At the Grange, everyone knows that your sister would have been living now, had it not been for Mr. Heathcliff. After all, it is preferable to be hated than loved by him. When I recollect how happy we were, how happy Catherine was before he came, I'm fit to curse the day. Most likely, Heathcliff noticed more truth in what was said than the spirit of the person who had said it. His attention was roused, I saw, for his eyes rained down tears among the ashes, and he drew his breath in suffocating sighs. I stared full at him, and laughed scornfully. The clouded windows of hell flashed a moment toward me. The fiend which usually looked out, however, was so dimmed and drowned that I did not hazard another sound of derision. Get up and be gone out of my sight, said the mourner. I guess he uttered those words at least through his voice, though his voice was hardly intelligible. I beg your pardon, I replied, but I loved Catherine too, and her brother requires attendance, which for her sake I shall supply. Now that she's dead, I see her in Hindley. Hindley has exactly her eyes. If you had not tried to gouge them out and make them black and red, and her... Get up, wretched idiot, before I stamp you to death, he cried, making a movement that caused me to make one also. But then I continued, holding myself ready to flee. If poor Catherine has trusted you, and assumed the ridiculous, contemptible, degrading title of Mrs. Heathcliff, she would soon have presented a similar picture. She would have borne you in a bottle. She wouldn't have borne your abominable behavior quietly. Her detestations and disgust must have found voice. The back of the settle and Earnshaw's person interposed between me and him. So instead of endeavoring to reach me, he snatched a dinner knife from the table and flung it at my head and struck beneath my ear and stopped the sentence I was uttering, but pulling it out, I sprang to the door and delivered another, which I hope went a little deeper than his missile. Gosh. Crazy. The last glimpse I caught of him was a furious rush on his part, checked by the embrace of his host, and both fell locked together on the hearth. Oh, so they're going to kill each other right here. In my flight through the kitchen, I bid Joseph speed to his master. I knocked over Hareton, who was hanging a litter of puppies from a chair in the back doorway. What? Does hanging mean something different? Good times, good times. In a bag, maybe? I hope. This is like a horror. Like, you try to, like, some guy tries to stab you. Then you leave them. You toss a knife at him. Then all of a sudden, these two other guys get in a wrestling match. Joseph, who's a little weird dude, you command him to go, and all of a sudden, you pass by this little kid who's hanging dogs on a chair. Heathcliff definitely taught him to do something like that. Let's just say it's a bag. Let's all get in a little bit happier of a mood and just say that this is a bag. Please. It's a bag. Take them to the markets. He's going to go sell them. He's going to make a little money for the family. And they're all going to find happy homes that aren't Wuthering Heights. Or the Grange, for that matter. Please. And blessed as a soul escaped from purgatory, I bounded, leaped, and flew down the steep road. Then, quitting its windings, shot directly across the moor, rolling over banks, and wading through marshes, precipitating myself, in fact, toward the beacon of light of the Grange. And far rather would I be condemned to a perpetual dwelling of the infernal regions, than even for one night abide beneath the roof of Wuthering Heights again. That's what I said! I would rather be condemned to perpetual dwelling in the infernal regions than for even one night abide beneath the roof of Wuthering Heights again. I need to make another video that literally is that. That's the title of the video. I don't know if YouTube's gonna let me title a video that long. And even for one night abide beneath the roof of Wuthering Heights again. That is so funny. Yeah, guys, that's our new headcanon. We're not talking about the hanging of dogs here. That breaks my heart. One second, I gotta write a note here. Gosh. Yeah, I should honestly. We should start doing that. Every single video that I make, I need to start titling them like the author titles them, or like the author would write them. That'd be so funny. Title it I Am Isabella. I love that title. That is so funny. Yeah, Isabella does have a good reason to not spend there. I think all of us have good reason to not spend time there either. Gosh. Your title is shorter than the video. The video, I should title the video that long and just go, it's what the book says. Same thing with me. I should make the video really, really short. So it takes you longer to read the actual title than it does to watch the video. That's a great idea. All right, guys, we just got to get through like 3 more pages. Oy. Isabella ceased speaking and took a drink of tea. Then she rose, and bidding me put on her bonnet, and a great shawl I had brought, and turning a deaf ear to my entreaties for her to remain another hour, she stepped into a chair, kissed Edgar and Catherine's portraits, bestowed a similar salute on me, and descended to the carriage accompanied by Fanny, who yelped wild with joy at recovering her mistress. Uh-huh. We get a happy dog moment there. She was driven away. I hope she's driving away. She's going with Fanny. Never to revisit this neighborhood, but a regular correspondence was established between her and my master when things were more settled. Love that. Good for her. I believe her new abode was in the south, near London. There she had borne a son, a few months subsequent to her escape. Huh? Heathcliff has a son? How many months are we talking? I need details on how many months we're talking here. We knew he had a son? In your condition, that's true. So she has a male heir. Yikes. Oh, this is how he gets the whole property. Oh, dang. That's right. The son was in the first chapter. Sorry, I'm an idiot. Wait. Hold on. Time out. The son was in the first chapter? Oh, that's right. His widow is there. Wait, that's interesting. Okay, so in my head, this is what happened. Hareton is there. And then Catherine's child is there. We have just 3 children. He was dead already in the first chapter. Okay, interesting. Man, this book is traumatizing me. I can't even remember what's happened in the first chapter anymore because I blocked things from my memory. Young Heathcliff's widows. Oh, interesting. Okay. Gotcha. It's all starting to connect with me. Catherine's child, Kathy, married to Mr. Heathcliff's son. No, don't do it. Dang it. No. Break the cycle. Come on, guys. Okay, yikes. All right, let's keep reading. All right. Mr. Heathcliff meeting me one day in the village. Actually, she reported him to be an ailing, peevish creature. Okay. Ouch. Mr. Heathcliff meeting me one day in the village inquired where she lived. I refused to tell. He remarked that it was not of any moment, only she must be aware of coming to her brother, so she should not be with him, if he had to keep her himself. That would give no information he discovered through some of the other servants, both her place of residence and the existence of the child. Still, he did not molest her. for which forbearance she might thank his aversion, I suppose. It's odd to me that Heathcliff would sleep with Isabella and they'd actually have a child. I don't want to know. I don't actually. Let's not think about that. Because I don't want to think about what was happening. Poor Isabella. He often asked about the infant when he saw me, and on hearing its name, smiled grimly and observed, "They wish me to hate it too. They wish me to hate it too, do they?" "I don't think they wish you to know anything about it," I answered. "But I'll have it," he said, "when I want it. They may reckon on that." Fortunately, its mother died before the time arrived, some 13 years after the decease of Catherine, when Linton was 12 or a little more. On the day succeeding Isabella's unexpected visit, I had no opportunity of speaking to my master. He shunned conversation, and was fit for discussing nothing. When I can get him to listen, I saw it please him that his sister had left her husband, whom he had abhorred with an intensity which the mildness of his nature would scarcely seem to allow. That's another good YouTube video. I abhor Heathcliff with an intensity which the mildness of my nature would scarcely seem to allow. These are brutal. Yeah, maybe it's not that odd, but I feel like there's some abusive thing going on there. So I don't really want to think about it. So deep and sensitive was his aversion that he refrained from going anywhere where he was likely to see or hear of Heathcliff. Grief and that together transformed him into a complete hermit. He threw up his office of magistrate, ceased even to attend church, avoided the village on all occasions, and spent his life of entire seclusion within the limits of his park and grounds, only varied by solitary rambles on the moors, and visits to the grave of his wife, mostly at evening or early morning before other wanderers were abroad. But he was too good to be thoroughly unhappy long. He didn't pray for Catherine's soul to haunt him. Time brought resignation, and a melancholy sweeter than common joy. He recalled her memory with ardent, tender love, and hopefully aspiring to the better world, where he doubted not she was gone. And he had earthly consolation and affections also. For a few days, I said, he seemed regardless of the puny successor to the departed. That coldness melted as fast as snow in April, and ere the tiny thing could stammer a word or totter a step, it wielded a despot's scepter in his heart. It was named Catherine, but he never called it the name in full, as he had never called the first Catherine short, probably because Heathcliff had a habit of doing so. The little one was always Cathy. It formed to him a distinction from the mother, and yet a connection with her, and his attachment sprang from its relation to her, far more than from its being his own. Oh, this is going to get ugly. Oh boy. I used to draw a comparison between him and Hindley Earnshaw and perplex myself to explain satisfactorily why their conduct was so opposite in similar circumstances. They had both been fond husbands, and were both attached to their children, and I could not see how they shouldn't both have taken the same road, for good or evil. But I thought in my mind Hindley, with apparently the stronger head, had shown himself sadly the worse and the weaker man. When his ship struck, the captain abandoned his post, and the crew, instead of trying to save her, rushed into riot and confusion, leaving no hope for their luckless vessel. Linton, on the contrary, displayed the true courage of a loyal and faithful soul. He trusted God, and God comforted him. Only one hoped and the other despaired. They chose their own lots, and were righteously doomed to endure them. Interesting. But you'll not want to hear my moralizing, Mr. Lockwood. You'll judge as well as I can at these things. At least, you'll think you will, and that's the same. The end of Earnshaw was what might have been expected. It followed fast on his sisters. There were scarcely 6 months between them. We at the Grange never got a very succinct account of his state's preceding it. All that I did learn was on occasion of going to aid in the preparations for the funeral. Mr. Kenneth came to announce the event to my master. Well, Nellie, said he, riding into the yard one morning too early not to alarm me with an instant presentiment of bad news. It's yours and my turn to go into mourning at present. Who's given us the slip now, do you think? Who? I asked in a flurry. Why, I guess, he returned, dismounting and slinging his bridle over the hook by a door. And nip up the corner of your apron. I'm certain you'll need it. Not Mr. Heathcliff, surely, I exclaimed. What? Would you have tears for him? Said the doctor. No, Heathcliff's a tough fellow. A tough young fellow. He looks blooming today. I've just seen him. He's rapidly regaining flesh since he lost his better half. Who is it then, Mr. Kenneth? I repeated impatiently. Hindley Earnshaw. I'm shocked that he didn't kill him. Like, maybe there is a murder here. This is actually interesting because in a weird way, I do feel like Heathcliff did kill him. Like, he made him an alcoholic. Not really. Like, he did that on his own doing, to be completely honest. But gambling and alcoholism, I'm sure, was what killed him. His liver just couldn't handle it anymore. Yeah, Kathy is Heathcliff's better half. That's funny. Your old friend Hindley, he replied, and my wicked gossip. Though he's been too wild for me this long while. There. I said we should draw water, but cheer up. He died true to his character, drunk as a lord, poor lad. I'm sorry, too. One can't help miss an old companion, though. Though he had the worst tricks with him that ever man imagined and has done me many rascally a turn. He's barely 27, it seems. That's your own age. Who'd have thought you were born in 1 year? Dang, died at 27. Yeah, he let it. That's a good qualifier. Didn't make him an alcoholic. He let him be an alcoholic for sure. I confess this blow was greater to me than the shock of Mrs. Linton's death. Ancient associations lingered around my heart. I sat down on the porch and wept for a blood relation, desiring Kenneth to get another servant to introduce him to the master. I could not hinder myself from pondering on that question. Had he had fair play? Whatever I did, that idea would bother me. It was so tirelessly pernicious that I resolved on requesting leave to go to Wuthering Heights and assist in the last duties of the dead. Mr. Linton was extremely reluctant to consent, but I pleaded eloquently for my friendless condition in which he lay. And I said my old master and foster brother had a claim on my service as strong as his own. Besides, I reminded him that the child, Hareton, and his wife's nephew, and in the absence of a nearer kin, he ought to act as its guardian. And he ought to and must inquire how the property was left, and look over the concerns of his brother-in-law. He was unfit for attending to such matters then, but he bid me speak to his lawyer, and at length permitted me to go. His lawyer had been Earnshaw's also. I also called the village and asked him to accompany me. He shook his head and advised that Heathcliff should be let alone, affirming if the truth were known, Hareton would be found little else than a beggar. His father died in debt, he said. The whole property is mortgaged. And the sole chance for the natural heir is to allow him an opportunity of creating some interest to the creditor's heart, that he may be inclined to deal leniently toward him. When I reached the Heights, I explained that I had come to see everything carried on decently, and Joseph, who appeared in sufficient distress, expressed satisfaction at my presence. Mr. Heathcliff said he did not perceive that I was wanted, but I might stay in order that the arrangements for the funeral order the arrangements for the funeral if I chose. Correctly, he marked. That fool's body should be buried at the crossroads. The crossroads, the footnote is... Where's the footnote? The place of burial for those who committed suicide. Whoa. Interesting. Is succumbing to alcoholism considered suicide at this point? A long, drawn-out one. That'd be rough. He should be buried at the crossroads without ceremony of any kind. I happened to leave him 10 minutes yesterday afternoon, and in that interval he fastened the two door of the houses against me. And he has spent the night in drinking himself to death deliberately. We broke in this morning, for we heard him snorting like a horse, and there he was laid over the settle. Flaying and scalping would not have awakened him. I sent for Kenneth, and he came, but not till the beast had changed him into carrion. He was both dead and cold and stark, and so you'll allow it was useless making more stir about him. The old servant confirmed this statement, but muttered. He says, we don't even get what this says? Come on, translator. What am I supposed to do with this? I'd rather be gone hissin' for the doctor. I'd such stain tent and de maester better ner him. And he warn't dead when I left. Now a sort. Oh gosh, Joseph, come on, dude. I insisted on the funeral being respectable. Mr. Heathcliff said I might have had my own way there too. Only he desired me to remember that the money for his whole affair came out of his pocket. He maintained a hard, careless deportment indicative of neither joy nor sorrow. If anything, it expressed a flinty gratification at a piece of difficult work, successfully executed. I observed once, indeed, something like exultation in his aspect. It was just when the people were bearing the coffin from the house, he had the hypocrisy to repent a mourner, and previous to follow with Hareton, he lifted the unfortunate child onto this table and muttered with peculiar gusto, "Now, my bonny lad, you are mine, and we'll see if one tree won't grow as crooked as another with the same wind to twist it." The unsuspecting thing was pleased at this speech. He played with Heathcliff's whiskers and stroked his head, or stroked his cheek, but I divined its meaning and observed tartly, "That boy must go back with me to Thrushcross Grange, sir. There is nothing in the world less yours than he is." "Does Linton say so?" he demanded. "Of course. He has ordered me to take him in," I replied. "Well," said the scoundrel, we'll not argue on the subject now, but I have a fancy to try my hand at rearing a young one. So intimate to your master, that I must supply the place of this with my own. If he attempt to remove it, I don't engage to let Hareton go undisputed, but I'll be pretty sure to make the other come. Remember to tell him." Ugh. Misery loves company. Dang. This hint was enough to bind our hands. I repeated its substance on my return, and Edgar Linton, little interested in the commencement, spoke no more of interfering. I'm not aware that he could have done it on purpose. Had he never been ever so willing, or had he ever been so willing, or had he been ever so willing? The guest was now the master of Wuthering Heights. He held firm possession, and proved to the attorney, who in his turn proved it to Mr. Linton, that Earnshaw had mortgaged every yard of land he owned for cash to supply his mania for gaming. And he, Heathcliff, was the mortgagee. Knew it. I knew it. I knew that little devil. He was making him drunk and taking advantage of him by being the mortgagee. In that manner, Hareton, who should now be the first gentleman in the neighborhood, was reduced to a state of complete dependence on his father's inveterate enemy, and lives in his own house as a servant deprived of the advantage of wages, and quite unable to right himself because of his friendlessness, and his ignorance that he has been wronged. Oh my gosh. In what was a decent first two chapters just devolved back into crap. Heathcliff's true character is really shining forth. The guy's miserable. This revenge plot that he started a long time ago has finally come to fruition, and he's probably soaking it up and loving it. Yeah, it's not really Misery Loves Company so much as he just wants all this revenge to kind of just pile up. Oh, these people are awful. They're so miserable. we're we're getting closer to being done, guys. Ay, 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 ay. All right, chapter 4. 5 is short. We'll do 6 next one. And then we'll do maybe 7 too. Ooh, 7's a long one. But we'll try to get that done. 2 down, 1 to go. This dude is crazy. I just can't deal with this guy anymore. All right, guys. Like, it's a pleasure hanging out with you guys, reading this book. Not really a pleasure reading this book, but we're 57% of the way through. I need to be further than that. This is killing me. I feel like we're making progress, but it feels slow and agonizing. We're getting there, guys. We're getting there. All right. All right, next reading will probably be maybe Thursday. I'm not sure yet. Maybe Wednesday or Thursday. Because we're not gonna be able to finish this week. We'll probably finish sometime next week. But if we could finish by next week, that would be great. We could be done in February. Oh, that'd be great if we were done in February. Only 50%, 57%. Everyone who dies in this, we hear they are dead first, then later hear how they die. Yeah. So who are the 3 people that we hear die? Or just the 3 people? Anytime, Audrey. I'm glad this was a good time for you. I'll probably sporadically do like night and morning reads. But when we get a happier book, I'll do them sporadically too, just so people can enjoy that. I need misery on this journey, or I need company on this miserable journey. All right, guys, I'm gonna jump off. I need to go take a shower after this again. Every time I finish, I need to go do something enjoyable. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm glad you like the night reads too. I feel like this book kind of applies to some good night reads, to be honest. So I don't mind night reads, but we'll keep plugging away at this. We're almost done, guys. We're getting there. Just hold on a little bit, then we'll get to a fun book after this, I promise. Oh, Kathy, you're the best. I appreciate it, hanging out with us. All right, guys, have a good night. I will see you in the next one.